Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to today's webinar. The focus of today's session is going to be the highly anticipated Rohit trade setup, which will be presented by none other than Mr. Rohit Srivastava. In this session, he will be taking us through the indicators he uses and how they come together to create this powerful trade setup. So it's a fantastic opportunity to gain insights from someone of his expertise. So be sure to stay tuned for the entire presentation. We'll have a Q&A session right after. So please feel free to take notes and note down your questions which you might have for him. And without further ado, I'll just hand it over to him.
Yeah, good morning, Shivam. Good morning to the entire community joining us today.
Yes.
On a Sunday, and ideal time when you're relaxed and not really on your job, to be able to pick up and learn something new, or even master or further enhance your understanding of some of the tools that we have on strike, which are core to not just what we do today, but what I've been probably trading with for almost 25 years. So I've been using the trade setup way back from I think 97, 98 onwards. There's only been one modification to the RMI indicator in this time period, probably in 99, and then it's remained the same throughout this time. Works across time frames, it works across securities. So that is the important thing for people to know, that it's time tested in terms of our application to whether it's generating calls on a desk or whether it's trading for yourself. And that is why the trade setup is key. Now, one is of course the RMI indicator. The trade setup is a combination of a couple of other indicators that help us to visualize where the trending moves are versus where certain moves are more corrective. That doesn't mean that the trend is not there, but it simply puts us in the vicinity of the outperforming stocks, or those which are easier to trade because they're following a certain pattern. So that is what we will talk about. We'll also try and get into each of the individual indicators. For those who are completely new to technical analysis, a little bit of explanation on each of the indicators that we are going to be plotting on the trade setup. So that is what we are really going to be doing today, and then we can follow that up with any Q&A on any of the tools that we discuss.
Sure, sir. So you want to share your screen?
Sure. So let me get started with that in a moment.
So we are getting requests to keep in between. You can keep adding on Hindi in Hindi.
सही है. हाँ, हिंदी में शुरुआत कर दूंगा तो फिर पूरा ही हिंदी में हो जाएगा. Then ठीक है, I'll try to keep the context that I need to keep shifting. Remind me if I keep going in a long length on English.
Sure.
And that can keep me on track. So I'm starting sharing, and I hope you can see the strike platform on my screen right now. Yeah, is it visible? Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, again, those who just joined in or joined in earlier, मैंने जैसे बताया कि हम लोग रोहित ट्रेड सेटअप, मतलब जो चुनिंदा इंडिकेटर्स है जिनके इस्तेमाल से हम लोग मार्केट में बाय सेल कर रहे हैं. मैं 25 साल से ऊपर कर रहा हूँ, और इस सेटअप को हर समय पे हर सिक्योरिटी पे हमने अप्लाई किया है. And because I think it works, it helps us in finding the most trending stocks or the most significant ones that we think are likely to do well. So it's an understanding of the setup in a visual sense that we will try and understand today, and what are the tools that go into it. क्योंकि मेरे हिसाब से ये 4-5 इंडिकेटर्स के अलावा मुझे चार्ट पे और कुछ नहीं चाहिए. हमने अलग से ऑफकोर्स सेंटिमेंट इंडिकेटर्स पे अलग से ही वेबिनार किया है, which help us in identifying maybe the turning points of the market. बट एक बार टर्निंग पॉइंट्स मिल गया, आपका नेक्स्ट स्टेप हो जाता है कि स्टॉक्स को ढूंढें. और स्टॉक्स को ढूंढें तो कौन से स्टॉक्स हैं जो कि ट्रेंडिंग है और कौन से स्टॉक्स हैं जो कि नॉन ट्रेंडिंग. अब ट्रेंडिंग का ये मतलब नहीं है कि ट्रेंड ऊपर है कि नहीं है. ट्रेंडिंग का ये मतलब है कि जिसमें प्रोबेबिलिटी जो है सपोर्ट लेके वापस ऊपर जाने की वो ज्यादा रहती है, एंड देयरफॉर सच स्टॉक्स टेंड टू allow you to actually take risk much more quickly and maybe also outperform more than the others because they don't retrace that much. They very quickly take support on the key levels that we will be talking about. तो इसको आप कहाँ पा सकते हो? आप कोई भी अगर स्टॉक खोलते हो या इंडेक्स खोलते हो स्ट्राइक प्लेटफॉर्म पे, तो इफ आई जस्ट ओपन एनी पर्टिकुलर स्टॉक, इफ आई चूज the first thing which ends up happening, say if I just choose LIC housing, or let me choose something which is a little more trending on a higher time frame. So let me say I choose ABB. ओके, तो ABB का चार्ट मैंने खोल लिया. अब जैसे मैं खोलता हूँ, सबसे पहले ये जो चार्ट है, यहाँ पे लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे जो ड्रॉप डाउन मेनू आप देखेंगे, यहाँ रोहित सेटअप लिखा है, इसमें यही आते हैं जो कुछ इंडिकेटर्स हम लोग देख रहे हैं. अगर जिन लोगों को प्लेन चार्ट देखना है, इंटरैक्टिव चार्ट में जाएंगे, प्लेन है, आप कुछ भी इस पे अपना लगा सकते हो. ओके, वैल्यूएशन चार्ट देखेंगे तो वैल्यूएशन हमारा ट्रेड सेटअप और वैल्यूएशन इंडिकेटर RMI और वैल्यूएशन दोनों को साथ में देता है. बट आज जिस चीज की बात हम लोग करेंगे, ये सबसे बीच में है, जो ऑटोमेटिकली डिफॉल्ट खुलता है, रोहित सेटअप. तो इसमें क्या है, आप 4-5 इंडिकेटर्स देख रहे हो ओके स्क्रीन पे. और ये इंडिकेटर्स क्या है, इनको मैं बताता हूँ. सबसे पहले है बॉलिंगर बैंड्स, विच इज दिस एक्सपैंडिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग येलो लाइन, जो येलो में आपको दिख रहा है. Okay, so there's a central line to it, there's a upper line and a lower line. After that, there is a moving average, which is in blue. Okay, so this blue line is the 40-day exponential average, and then there's an indicator at the bottom known as RMI. और ये सब indicators के data point left hand side पे भी हमने दिए हुए हैं, so that those who are not very visual with charts, they can look at the data and see, okay, ये indicator में buy sell कहाँ पे आया और ये levels क्या है. अब ये levels का महत्व क्या है, इसको हम लोग पहले समझने की कोशिश करेंगे one by one on each indicator. So let's start with the simplest indicator known as a moving average, and I'll try to explain each of these very very briefly on a blank screen, so you can actually get an idea of what it is. See, हमारे पास डेली जो प्लॉट होता है, भाव जब प्लॉट होते हैं, इसमें ओपन हाई लो क्लोज सब डेटा पॉइंट्स होते हैं. बट हम लोग जो एक्चुअल ट्रैक करते हैं सबसे ज्यादा वो है क्लोजिंग प्राइस. क्योंकि अगर हम लोग डेली चार्ट देख रहे हैं तो डेली क्लोजिंग प्राइस, आर्ली चार्ट देख रहे हैं तो आर्ली क्लोजिंग प्राइस, 15 मिनट चार्ट देख रहे हैं तो 15 मिनट क्लोजिंग प्राइस, और मंथली देख रहे हैं तो मंथली क्लोजिंग प्राइस. इसके बेसिस पे ज्यादातर इंडिकेटर्स कैलकुलेट होते हैं. अच्छा, कुछ जो सॉफ्टवेयर टूल्स है वो आपको ऑप्शन जरूर देंगे कि चलो आपको क्लोजिंग की जगह हाई या लो पे कैलकुलेट करना है, बट दैट इज नॉट द डिफॉल्ट. डिफॉल्ट 99.9% लोग क्लोजिंग प्राइस पे करते हैं, एंड दैट इज द की. तो क्लोजिंग प्राइस अगर चार्ट है मेरे पास, या अगर मैं सोचता हूँ ये क्लोजिंग प्राइस चार्ट चल रहा है, ओके, और इसका मुझे एवरेज लेना है, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, इसमें जो क्लोजिंग प्राइसेस है पिछले 20 दिनों के क्लोजिंग, अगर मुझे 20 डे मूविंग एवरेज निकालना है, ओके, इफ यू थिंक ऑफ अ 20 डे मूविंग एवरेज, ओके, सो लेट मी कॉल इट अ 20 DMA. और इसका मैं साइज भी बड़ा कर देता हूँ ताकि आप इसको पढ़ पाओ. ओके, थोड़ा और, या सो 20 DMA अगर हम प्लॉट कर रहे हैं तो इसका ये मतलब है कि यहां से जो पिछले 20 दिन है, यहां से मतलब यहां से पिछले 20 दिनों के जो क्लोजिंग प्राइसेस हैं उनको हम लोग लेंगे. ओके, और इन 20 दिनों के क्लोजिंग प्राइसेस को हम लोग एवरेज कर देंगे. एवरेज मतलब इनका टोटल. ओके, हर एक दिन का प्राइस का टोटल लेंगे, जो कि मैथमेटिकल टर्म्स में हम लोग कहते हैं सिग्मा. तो सिग्मा 1 to 20 डेज का, 20 दिनों का हम लोग टोटल करते हैं, और इस 20 दिनों के टोटल को हम लोग 20 से डिवाइड कर देंगे. ओके, तो ऑल द क्लोजिंग प्राइसेस ऑफ द लास्ट 20 डेज आर एडेड अप and then divided by 20. As simple as that. And that is why it is called a simple moving average or SMA. मैंने ये D यहाँ इसलिए डाला है कि daily moving average है, but unless it says anything else than D, W or M, which means daily, weekly, monthly, it is considered to be a simple moving average. Okay, some people may just write it as 20 SMA, but 20 SMA लिखने से ये मुझे नहीं पता चलता है कि वो daily का है, weekly का है. So you have to usually look on the left hand side of the chart where a W or a D is written, which means that this is a weekly chart, and this therefore SMA is of a 20 days. I usually write 20 DMA just to tell you the time frame. So if it's 20 D, then it means 20 days moving average, and usually that is a simple average. If I want to mention that it's an exponential average, which I'll also explain, then it is 20E, right? So usually I end up using a 40 EMA on my charts. So EMA means exponential. Now what is the difference between these two? So first let us understand how do we really plot this simple moving average. Okay, so the simple moving average for each 20 days is plotted. So if I take the last 20 days average, it is plotted here. Then from this day to this day, last 20 days, it will be plotted one day before. Okay, then from the third day before till 20 days before is plotted behind. Okay, and each day is then plotted, and then it ends up looking something similar to price, but a much more smoother version of the price. Okay, and this is usually plotted on top of the price, not below it, like I've shown over here. So usually the 20-day moving average will move along with the price, something like this. Now what is the importance of this? So let us just remove all these plots so I can actually give you a quicker, easier idea of what we are really talking about. Okay, so when we actually plot this whole thing, when we plot a 20-day average, it's going to look, like I said, something like this. The importance of this average is that sometimes it works as a support, sometimes it works as a resistance, and it's also an indication of a trend reversal. So see, for example, prices are above the average throughout this time, they are above this red line. तो जब तक ये रेड लाइन के ऊपर भाव चल रहा है, हम लोग कहते हैं कि ट्रेंड अप है, अप है, अप है, अप है. बट कहीं ना कहीं ये जाके रेड लाइन को तोड़ने लगता है और तोड़ के फिर उसके नीचे निकल जाता है. तो यहां से ट्रेंड रिवर्सल का दौर जो है वो शुरू होता है. कभी कभी टूटने के बाद वापस उसके ऊपर भी नहीं आता है. यहाँ तो मैंने ऐसे एग्जाम्पल वाइज दिखाया कि नीचे ऊपर भी आ रहा है, कभी आता है, कभी नहीं आता है. बट स्लोली दैट इज अ पॉइंट फ्रॉम वेयर यू स्टार्ट सीइंग द ट्रेंड वीकन. Okay, and then it weakens further, and then it eventually breaks down from there. So this, when you close below the moving average, okay, on a closing basis, मतलब अगर मैं डेली चार्ट देख रहा हूँ तो डेली क्लोजिंग जो शाम को 3:30 बजे होता है, वो अगर ये रेड लाइन के नीचे आ जाता है तो हम लोग मानते हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं ट्रेंड रिवर्स हो गया है, एंड दैट अलाउज अस टू एग्जिट आवर पोजीशन, रिड्यूस आवर पोजीशन, और क्लोज इट आउट, और some action has to be taken over there. The method of action can vary from person to person. You can have a position sizing methodology or so on. But at this point, let us just understand that the trend reversal tells us that the trend is changing. I need to do something. Okay. And that becomes the first step. So same way, even when the trend is down, at some point of time, prices come above the red line from below the red line. And that is a sign that the trend is changing from down to up. Okay, so that is the importance of a moving average that we use. Now in classic, in technical analysis, we say कि एक ही moving average का इस्तेमाल क्यों, ये तो short term trend का है, तो थोड़ा longer term trend भी समझ लें. And short term and longer term trends sometimes interact with each other. So then what I have ended up plotting is what I mentioned earlier, is that you have to use two different time frames, one for slightly shorter term and one for slightly medium term. So for that, we then therefore I end up using the 40 EMA. Okay, the 40 EMA is an exponential average. What is the difference between the simple average and the exponential average? इसमें बस इतना फर्क है, जो लेटेस्ट डेटा पॉइंट है, जो लास्ट डेटा पॉइंट है एवरेज का, लास्ट जो क्लोजिंग प्राइस है, इसको हम लोग थोड़ा ज्यादा वेटेज देते हैं ऑन अ डेली बेसिस, विच इज कॉल्ड द एक्सपोनेंट. तो इससे क्या होता है कि ये जो मूविंग एवरेज है जिस तरह प्लॉट हुआ है, अगर मैं 20 डे EMA प्लॉट करूंगा तो ये इससे थोड़ा सा ऊपर आ जाएगा बिकॉज ऑफ गिविंग हायर वेटेज. In fact, it may move a little faster also. It may move down a little more, and then it may move up a little more, and then it may move down a little more. So something like this, which sort of speeds up the moving average, okay, and gives us an early exit slightly faster than the simple average. So to get that faster exit or to get a faster signal, we actually end up using the EMA. So what I have ended up devising for myself over time, and I'm not sure for what reason, and I know that even internationally some people use this, because I came to know of it in one of my early jobs at my CEO there way back. I'm talking of 99, was also using the same combination, and somebody at Morgan Stanley basically told him that this is what you should do, and I was already had come down to this conclusion. So I was actually using the 20-40, where I was using 20 simple and 40 exponential as a combination. Okay, so the simple was actually going slowly behind price, but the exponential, while it was taking a higher time frame, I speeded up it a bit. Okay, so it will actually move something like this. Okay, so something like this. So it is much below the red line when the trend is up. Okay, and it is above the red line, as you see over here, when the trend is down. Okay, so what happens by using two moving averages are two things. One is it gives you a larger support like this, more medium term, and sometimes what might happen is that instead of getting a correction, यहाँ पे support लेके ऊपर का trend वापस शुरू हो जाता है. And this is why I call it the Rohit trade setup. It's essentially a trade setup for trending stocks which find support at the larger average and still continue. So sometimes in the short term, we may see a correction breaking the shorter term average, but we may not break the medium term average. And that means the larger trend remains intact. Okay, so this is the type of movement that we are really looking for. The second thing with the moving average crossovers is that it also gives you a sign of trend reversal. So say for example, when the green line goes below the red line, which is over here, okay, these are also interesting indications of trend reversal. So some people, so classic theory, okay, and that's not what I follow, but just for your knowledge, classic theory is that when the red goes, green goes below the red, okay, that's a sign that the trend is changing from down to up, because the shorter term average is actually crossing above the longer term average. So when the shorter term average goes above the longer term average, it's a sign, it's a bullish sign. And similarly, when it goes the other way, it can be a bearish sign as well. Okay, so this is sort of the pattern that you see repeatedly in moving average. And but I usually don't wait for these crossovers. Okay, we look at how we actually look for early signals using RMI, and then using the 20 average, and the 40 to really look for trending stocks. That is sort of the combination that we are looking for. Okay, but there's one interesting feature about this crossover thing. See, in a bull market, you'll find the crossover happens here. After that, for many periods of time, prices continue to go higher. So therefore, the theory becomes that once you get a crossover, market remains bullish for a period of time. Yes, that is very true. But in a bearish market, it is absolutely not true. Okay. So while in a bullish market, you can use this crossover as a bullish signal to buy and hold, in a bearish market, you can't. In fact, to the contrary, many times when you get crossovers, by that time the bounce is only over, because a bearish market is never in straight line. So I'm giving you a deep insight. Very few people will tell you this, that in a bearish market, so for example, the market is going down like this. Okay, in bear markets you get sharp bounce backs, very sharp. Okay, it's not like it's not like a bull market. And because of that, by the time this sharp bounce back occurs, at the close to the top of that bounce back, you end up getting a moving average bullish crossover. Okay, so something like the red line may be falling over here, and then it goes up a bit, and then it goes down again, and then you have the green line, which was lagging behind it. And just at the fag end, because this prices went up so much, it will cross and give you a bullish crossover just at the point where prices are peaking, and then it will turn down again. So it will end up doing something very unusual like this, where you'll get a bullish crossover right here, or very close to the, or just before the peak, which is not a very good signal. So you don't use moving average crossovers during a bear market, because they will always get you trapped. Okay, so this is very interesting insight. As in, when you're in this type of a market, MA crossovers are not to be used like this. There's another utility which we will understand. Okay, so I hope this is sort of explained the concept of moving averages in a great amount of detail. So what is the next thing that you see? So when you come to the trade setup again, okay, there are two lines that I've explained to you so far. One is this midline, okay, this one, which is the yellow midline, okay, which is the 20-day simple moving average. And then one is this blue line. This blue line is the 40-day exponential moving average. So now you have two levels to really deal with. Okay, and I'll just switch this to a weekly chart, because on a weekly chart we see something very interesting, and this is what we have to try and understand when we say what is the Rohit setup. So when you look at this chart and look at the entire movement of ABB from March 2020 to date, what do you really see? I see a trending stock. What do I mean by trending? That once it started to move up, okay, and it crossed the averages over here. See, over here, what I explained has actually happened from the bottom upwards. So let us just zoom in to understand this. Okay, first of all, you have a 20-day average, and this 20-day average, okay, let me make this a red line to make it more bright. This 20-day average is going down, down. At what point does it cross the 40-day average? Over here. Okay, so moving average crossover guys will say this is the buy signal, okay, on the weekly chart. But people who use the RMI indicator or the Rohit momentum indicator, this is the buy signal where the green is crossing the red. Okay, much earlier. And there's a second buy signal over here also, because there's a sell here and then a buy again. That buy signal is here. So usually the RMI is way ahead of the moving average crossover. But the moving average crossover can be a good late confirmation that you have a larger uptrend. Because see, what ends up happening once a larger uptrend starts, you find that throughout this time period, and I mean throughout, the 20 just remains above the 40, which means this yellow line, okay, is above the blue line, not for 6 months, not for 1 year, but for the entire period since 2020 till today, which is almost 4 years, it has remained above. And this is a weekly chart, okay. So on a weekly chart, you have a very trending setup where once you have a crossover, you really haven't seen the indicator, go down again. So that's a very important thing. The second thing which is happening is that throughout this phase, what you actually see is support being taken at the bottom end of the range. What is the bottom end of the range? So let's define it in two ways. I define it as either the moving average here, okay, and second is we have plotted something known as Bollinger bands. What are Bollinger bands? This is the outer line, okay. So now how is this outer line plotted? Let us understand that also very quickly for people who are new to this subject, because having some logic and knowledge is also interesting. I know you can simply read it based on the drawing, but you should know what is it that you're really using. Okay, so we've already studied the 20-day average. Okay, so let's say that this is the price action, underlying price action. Let me just draw that. Okay, so you have an underlying price action, prices go up, they pull back a bit, and then they start going up again. This is the underlying price action. The next thing I do is I plot a 20-day moving average. So the 20-day moving average moves above this, crosses over, and then moves above this again. So in this process, you see prices went above the 20-day average, that's bullish. Then they went below the average, that's bearish. Then again, they went above the average, that's bullish. Okay, now you had two phases, bullish, bearish, and bullish. Now, the next thing we do to plot the Bollinger Band, we calculate two standard deviations for the same time period. So time period here is what, 20 days. So I take 20 days data. We do a statistical calculation known as standard deviation. Let's not get into the formula. You can do it in an Excel sheet. Standard deviation formula is there. You take 20 days from year to year, okay, and calculate a standard deviation, and you will end up plotting a line. You'll end up getting data which is basically the deviation, okay, how much is the deviation. Now what the formula of Bollinger bands, and this is by John Bollinger, he was the guy who invented the Bollinger bands. He said, let us plot two standard deviations above the 20 DMA and two below. So he says, what if the standard deviation is 10 rupees, okay, based on the last 20 days of data, the standard deviation of price movement, which is basically, in another language, it is volatility. Okay, but it is historical volatility based on the standard deviation formula and not based on the formula which is used in actual calculation of IV and all the options Greeks and all that. That is a different formula. Here we are using the oldest statistical formula on earth, which is standard deviation. Okay, so by using the standard deviation formula, we calculate what is the 20-day volatility. Is it a 5 rupee range in which the stock is moving? Is it a 20 rupee range in which the stock is moving? And once we are able to determine that, okay, then we plot that much above or below the 20-day average. So as prices are moving up sharply, what happens? Volatility will be considered to be rising, right? Because prices are moving up sharply. The speed of this rise is more than the speed of this fall, right? So volatility is contracting when it is falling and it is rising when it is rising. So if market falls sharply, yes, then also volatility can rise like this. Okay, so you can have both situations. Now, so wait 1 second. So the next thing we do is we plot. So we plot on each day, we plot two above, two below. So it's actually the upper band and lower band are equally distant from each other. And as the prices are going up and the volatility is increasing, the distance between the 20-day average and this band starts to increase. And when these prices start to correct or they're going in a very narrow range, the volatility is reducing. So the distance between the average and the upper band also reduces. Now, just like the upper band, I take the same distance and plot a band below it. Same distance. Okay, so if this distance is here so much, the same distance will be below. So the band will go something like this. Okay. So what ends up happening, so if I want to draw it more exactly, it should tighten a little more. It should become exactly the same distance. So what is happening is that as volatility increases, the bands tend to expand. When we say expand, it means this is far away on the top and this is also far away at the bottom. As the volatility starts to reduce over here, the bands tighten, which means it comes closer and this also comes closer. And so the distance between this reduces. Okay, so continuously as prices move in a particular direction, the bands are expanding and then contracting, expanding and then contracting. Okay, so it sort of tells you something about the expanding, contracting nature of price movement, but it does so without a direction, whether the direction is up or down. So if the direction of the market also changes from here, it starts going down. Okay, the same pattern will repeat on the opposite side. So that means that the moving average will move, will turn down from here, it will move something like this, completely the opposite of what it was doing earlier. And the bands which were here tight will again now expand and contract on the way down. So visually, by looking at this expansion contraction, we get a sense of when prices are moving up, moving down, or slowing down. So even when the momentum of this price starts to slow down over here, you will find that the bands are getting tighter. Already started to get tighter over here. So this early tightening of the bands can actually give you an early warning that the trend is now reaching late stages of the move. You understand? So now let us just practically look at the example on strike. Okay, notice now you're seeing this here live. Okay, notice that as we see the band distance between these two bands starts reducing. Over here only it starts reducing. It is already an early sign that the trend is going to stop and reverse. Okay, so this expansion contraction tells us a lot of different things. The first thing is that when a particular rise may be slowing down, it tells us that slightly in advance because it senses that change in momentum. Okay, and similarly, the bands will start to, when they are very tight, the logic is if it's tightened a lot, it's going to expand again, right? Nothing is static in the stock market. Nothing. कोई भी चीज कभी भी कहीं रुक नहीं जाती है. बाजार में कंटिन्यूसली तेजी मंदी होती जाती है. तो जब भी ये बैंड्स, ये जो डिस्टेंस है, ओके, ये जो डिस्टेंस है बैंड्स के बीच में, ये पहले बढ़ता है और जैसे बढ़ने के बाद घटने लगता है, इसका मतलब है कि ये जो राइज है ये रुकने वाला है. और जैसे ये बहुत ही टाइट हो जाता है, ओके, वेरी टाइट, तो इसका ये मतलब है ये वेरी टाइट तो रह नहीं सकता, कहीं ना कहीं फिर से एक्सपैंड होने वाला है. एंड दैट मीन्स द ट्रेंड इज गोइंग टू शो अप. आपको सिर्फ इतना पता लगाना है कि ये ट्रेंड ऊपर की तरफ आएगा कि नीचे की तरफ, क्योंकि जैसे यहाँ पे कॉन्ट्रैक्शन हुआ, इसके बाद ट्रेंड वापस नीचे की तरफ चला गया. ओके, सो दिस इज द ओनली थिंग दैट यू हैव टू जज. ओके, वेदर आफ्टर एवरी कॉन्ट्रैक्शन इज इट गोइंग टू गो डाउन और अप. ये चीज आपको बॉलिंगर बैंड से नहीं पता चलती है, और इसी के लिए हम लोग RMI यूज करते हैं, रोहित मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर यूज करते हैं, जो कि हमें बाय सेल सिग्नल्स दे रहा है. सो दैट इज सॉर्ट ऑफ द डायरेक्शनल इंडिकेटर. Volatility only tells us that it is going into a trending phase or a non-trending phase. अच्छा, इसका एक और काम है बॉलिंगर बैंड्स का, और ये है कि ये आपको सपोर्ट और रेजिस्टेंस बताता है. Where will prices face resistance? Where will they face support? When the bands are very, very tight, as we are seeing right in between over here, okay, when the bands are very, very tight, then they act as a very good support resistance zone, even here. So when we go from the bottom end to the top end, you notice that it will always act as a support. So here you see prices come down, they sort of they didn't even touch this lower end, but here they did. They touched this lower end, but they did not break. It acts as a very good support. They touched the upper end, but it did not break. Acts as a very good resistance. And then at some point of time, the band starts expanding, and in which then prices are trending upwards. Okay, but as long as they're in that tight range, the top and bottom end act as very good support resistance. See it again over here, again acts as very good support. Now there are cases where these levels will break. So then what? Like here, this level broke, the lower band broke, but it held twice. So it is a support. What I look for, therefore, in a good setup is I look for a setup that actually holds these supports, that respects it. Okay. So I consider that stocks that respect their support levels or resistance levels as better to trade than those which don't respect. That doesn't mean the one that is not respecting is not in an uptrend. यहाँ पे ये टूटने के बाद भी वापस अपट्रेंड चालू हो सकता है, बट ये मेरा चॉइस है. अगर मैं चाहता हूँ 50 स्टॉक्स के चार्ट्स में अगर स्कैन करता हूँ, देखिए जैसे इधर है, तो मैं चूज कर सकता हूँ कि जो स्टॉक जब ट्रेंड कर रहा है उसी में तेजी मंदी करूँ. अगर ये ऐसा जोन है जहाँ पे रिस्पेक्ट नहीं आ रहा है, ओके, भाव बैंड्स को रिस्पेक्ट नहीं दे रहा है, सपोर्ट को रिस्पेक्ट नहीं दे रहा है, 40 डे एवरेज 50 डे एवरेज को रिस्पेक्ट नहीं दे रहा है, तो वो स्टॉक को मैं हटा देता हूँ अपने लिस्ट से, अपने ट्रेडिंग से, और कुछ और ढूंढता हूँ. तो ये ढूंढने का काम ही आपका डेली काम है. Okay, using this trade setup and scanning across stocks, which you can actually do on a watch list. Okay, by creating a watch list on Strike on the homepage, you can create a custom watch list, look at each of the stock charts, and actually decide कि कौन से जो stock हैं वो trending in nature हैं. अभी आप बोलेंगे ये कैसे करते हैं, so we'll try and jump into that. But I hope you got the concept now of Bollinger Bands. So Bollinger Bands, when they are tight, provide you with very good support resistance. The expanding and contracting nature tells us whether they are trending or non-trending, or whether the trend is coming to an end. Okay, whether it's about to conclude or whether it's about to start. And so that is a helpful tool. If sometimes in fact you can even plot the band difference. मुझे ऐसा लगता है, ऐसा इसमें इंडिकेटर भी है बॉलिंगर बैंड्स का. जो विड्थ है, ये देखिए बॉलिंगर बैंड विड्थ, उसको भी आप एज एन इंडिकेटर प्लॉट करके देख सकते हैं कि भाई बैंड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो रहा है कि एक्सपैंड हो रहा है. अभी मैं उसके अंदर नहीं जाता हूँ, बट जस्ट फॉर एन फॉर पीपल हु वांट टू, instead of visually do it, you want to plot it like an indicator, you can do that also. There's one more behavioral trait of this whole setup, which may not immediately be visible to you, and I will explain that, okay, on this chart again. Okay, and what is this visual trait? The visual trait of this is that when prices are actually moving around the moving average along with the bands, okay, they do sometimes tend to take support on this moving average continuously. Okay, so which means the 20-day actually moves something like this. Sorry, I'll take a red line. It's something like this. Okay, before it breaks, it has this tendency. Now in this example, of course, because this is a theoretical chart और हमने थियोरी के हिसाब से इसको बनाया हुआ है, तो इसमें मैं ये नहीं बोल सकता. Just give me a moment, I'm getting a call. I'm in a webinar. I'll call you. हाँ. तो इसमें हम लोग कंटिन्यूसली क्या देखते हैं कि ये 20-डे एवरेज जो है ये बार बार सपोर्ट लेता है. ओके, और फिर किसी पॉइंट पे जाके ये लेवल टूट जाता है. नाउ समटाइम्स इट इज कंटिन्यूस, जो आप देखेंगे कि 4-5 बार सपोर्ट लेता है. कुछ चार्ट्स पे आप देखेंगे कि अर्ली स्टेजेस पे यहाँ पे शुरुआत में लेगा, फिर बाद में लेगा, और फिर बाद में एक आध बार सपोर्ट लेने के बाद टूट जाएगा. Okay, this is an important indication. Doesn't always happen like in the chart we were just now looking at. It wasn't there in all cases, but in some points of time it is there. Okay, and so this also helps us in identifying where we are in the overall stages of this trending contracting stage. Because usually in the late stage, like जैसे यहाँ पे trend conclude हो रहा है, भाव जो है एक बार support लेके उस पे bounce करता है, फिर जाके उसको तोड़ता है. Okay, so that sort of also gives you an indication that it's getting close to a trend reversal. It hasn't finally happened, and then it finally happens. So watching this is an important thing to do, and that is the role of the midpoint. The midpoint acts as a support many times, and till it breaks. So now let's look at it on the live chart, because that's always useful. See here, when it is pulled back, it pulled back to the 20-day average, took support there. Again, it went up. Now here the Bollinger Bands have started to contract. So already a sign कि टूटने वाला है. बट यहाँ पे 20-डे एवरेज से फिर से एक लास्ट बार उसने ऊपर उछाल मारने की कोशिश करी, और उसके बाद लोअर बैंड तक नीचे आया. अब यहाँ तक लोअर बैंड टाइट हो गया, तो ये सपोर्ट उसने टूटा नहीं. तो यहाँ पे आपको लगेगा कि अरे लोअर बैंड सपोर्ट बहुत नीचे है. बट जब तक ये कंसोलिडेशन नहीं होता है और ये 20 एवरेज तोड़ता नहीं है, तब तक नीचे के बैंड तक आने की चेष्टा भी नहीं कर रहा है. Okay, it's only after it breaks the 20 DMA that it will come to the lower band, and by the time it's breaking the 20 DMA, the lower band has come up so much that the support is right next door. So as an investor you might say, अरे छोड़ो ना यार, अभी ये 4 रुपए के लिए मैं क्या बेचूं. So that is how you have to think about it. And so an investor can actually use this to hold on every time, thinking that okay, this is my minimum risk to the bottom end, and unless we really break this bottom end, I don't want to be getting out of this stock, right? I want to simply hold on to this and ride the entire trend. So that is what it tells you. Now, if it broke over here, yes, the distance would be very wide, and therefore you would be scared. But in a trending phase, typically that doesn't happen. In a trending phase, you'll find that it just holds on and goes like, see, even here it tried to break. Intraday यहाँ टूटा है, see, intra week यहाँ पे आपके पेशेंस का जरूर टेस्ट होगा, क्योंकि हफ्ते के बीच में जब ये टूट रहा है, बुरी खबरें आ रही हैं, बाजार गिर रहा है, आपको लगे यार ये खत्म हो गया, end of the week it bounces back and still closes above the 20-day average again, only breaking it over here. And by that time the band has come up, the support has come up, and now the support gets limited. The downside gets limited by this support. So this is a very good support resistance. Okay, now the opposite, when it is in a trending phase going up or a trending phase going down, the upper band acts as a resistance, but it's not an exacting resistance support, like the support is over here कि exactly इधर रुक छू के रुक गया है. यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं होगा. यहाँ पे कई बार बैंड के ऊपर भी जाता है और फिर उसके ऊपर चलता जाता है, then it pulls back a bit lower the band and then again tries to shoot above the band. So basically what prices are trying to do over here is push the band up and increase the volatility, and by doing so then the lower moves down. It's when that it stops pushing the band up here, see it didn't go above the band at this point, that the bands will start to tighten. So jahan pe prices find resistance at the upper band and are not able to cross it, that is where the bands start to tighten and the volatility reduces, and eventually you get a trend reversal back to the lower end. अच्छा, now some traders might not mind कि ये सब अपर एंड पे रेजिस्टेंस ले लिया, एक बार यहाँ पे काट के वापस री एंट्री करते हैं. See, that is a trader mentality. So you have to differentiate between whether you are in the market as a trader or as an investor. If you are as a trader, then you'll be getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out multiple times through each of these cycles. Okay. If you're an investor, you will be just holding on as long as the lower end support is not broken and the risk reward is favorable, which means the downside to upside ratio is not very high. If the downside is 20% and it's breaking down, you might want to take some risk off the table, reduce your position somewhat. But if that is not the case, then you might just say, अरे 4-5% ही नीचे है, lower band बहुत दूर नहीं है, इतना तो ऊपर आ चुका है, why should I really get out over here? Now we learn to use this setup in combination with the RMI, right? The Rohit momentum indicator. Now what you'll notice is there's a lot of similarity between Bollinger band and RMI. And the main difference is in terms of direction. RMI is giving you buy and sell signals, so आपको एक direction देता है, whereas जो Bollinger band है वो आपको direction नहीं देता है, but बताता है कि यहाँ trending है. तो जब trending है तो RMI भी साथ में ही जाएगा, right? So they actually appear like cycles. So I say this is a Bollinger band cycle of expanding and contracting, another one of expanding and contracting. And similarly in the RMI also we see the RMI going up, coming back to zero, going up, coming back to zero, going up and coming back to zero. So there are multiple cycles happening on both. The difference is this gives a buy signal. Okay, if we were in a bear market, this would not help, because in a bear market you will get a sell signal, bands are expanding, but they're expanding to the downside. Okay, but sometimes the sell signal comes before the bands start to break down. So यहाँ पे sell signal आ गया, उसके बाद ये range टूट गया और सब आया और फिर band नीचे की तरफ जाने लग गया. So that is why the RMI gives you direction. It tells you which side you might move. Okay, and then you don't know at that point whether bands will hold or widen, because see ये यहाँ पे support लेके ऊपर आया है. Typical expectation will be कि it will continue unless it breaks the midpoint. The midpoint is the 20-day average of the Bollinger band. Okay, that is the standard setup. When you plot the Bollinger band, the standard setting in this, when you see the setting, is 2 and 20. Okay, so 2 standard deviations, 20-day moving average. ये standard setting है. इसको आप बदल जरूर सकते हैं, but ये standard setting के साथ आता है. Okay, so I've never bothered to change the setting. I'm happy with it. Even if the whole world is using it, it still works. And our job is not to judge whether it's working now or not. Our job is to judge which are the stocks on which it is working and trade only in those stocks. अरे जिस पे काम नहीं कर रहा है उसको ट्रेड करने की जरूरत क्या है? हजारों स्टॉक्स लिस्टेड हैं बाजार में. So that is the point of the whole system. The purpose of the system is not you trade anything and everything. Okay, when there are 5,000 stocks listed, but you trade those which are giving you a good signal, where the setup is good, where it is trending, where it is holding support and doing something like what I'm showing you on this chart. So I'm using this chart as a singular example, but let me tell you कि ये जो आप चार्ट पे देख रहे हो, ये जिस तरह का पैटर्न आप देख रहे हो, जिसको मैं बार बार समझा रहा हूँ, ऐसा ही पैटर्न डेली पे भी बन सकता है कि ये बैंड एक्सपैंड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो रहे हैं, प्राइसेस लोअर बैंड पे सपोर्ट ले रहे हैं, ऑल सेम लुक, सेम एवरीथिंग कैन हैपन ऑन अ डेली चार्ट, सेम थिंग कैन हैपन ऑन अ वीकली चार्ट, सेम थिंग कैन हैपन ऑन अ मंथली चार्ट. आपके ऊपर है कि आप किस चार्ट और किस टाइम फ्रेम पे उसको ढूंढ रहे हो. ओके, कभी कभी डेली में नहीं दिखेगा, वीकली में दिखेगा, वीकली में नहीं दिखेगा, मंथली में दिखेगा. Okay, so last but not the least, what is the RMI indicator? How does it work? Okay, so we go back to the drawing board for that. so that we can get a picture of what it is. So I'm going to remove this from the screen and we will get into what is the RMI. अब RMI इंडिकेटर कुछ नहीं, जैसे कोई भी मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर आप यूज करते हो, MACD यूज करते हो, ओके, वैसा ही है. फर्क सिर्फ इतना है कि MACD से थोड़ा तेज है, मतलब इट मूव्स फास्टर, it is smoother than using a rate of change. Okay, although momentum, when we say momentum, it basically means rate of change, but उसको थोड़ा स्मूथ करना, अच्छे से प्लॉट करना, दूसरे इंडिकेटर से फास्टर बनाना, इसी काम में मैंने अपने नाम से ये इंडिकेटर बनाया. थोड़े कुछ वेरिएशंस किए एग्जिस्टिंग फॉर्मूलाज में और वेटेजेस चेंज किए ताकि ये मेरे तरीके से जैसे मुझे चाहिए उस तरह काम करे. And we've been training people on this for the last several years in our mentorship programs, and happy with the results. So it's not just me now using it. There's a whole community of people using it, and therefore you should take a look at the indicator itself. Okay, now this indicator comes with a central line. Okay, central line is nothing but what is known as the zero line. Okay, तो इसको हम लोग यहाँ पे मैं zero लिख देता हूँ. So you know that this is a zero line. What zero simply means is this is the point at which momentum is zero. Okay, all momentum has come to a halt. Now why does momentum come to zero? हमने Bollinger Band में भी देखा, prices go up, then they go flat, volatility comes down. Okay, so it comes down to the point where it reaches zero. ये चीज हमने चार्ट पे भी देखी कि RMI जो है बार बार यहाँ ऊपर से जैसे Bollinger Band कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुए, करेक्शन आया, ये जीरो तक आ गया वापस. Okay, and I call that a cycle. One cycle of the indicator is when it goes up and comes back to zero. Another cycle is it goes up and here it comes back to zero. So therefore, I consider this entire phase, from, let me increase the points on this just to show you. This entire phase up and down, and this entire phase is one cycle. Here also, RMI goes up, 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 till it comes back to zero. This from 0 to 0 is one cycle. Okay. And then from here, 0 to 0 is one more cycle. So on and so forth. I consider these as multiple cycles. So therefore, I ended up calling them momentum cycles. So when I say RMI, I say I'm measuring momentum cycles, which are cycles of the market expanding and contracting. When you plot Bollinger Band, you're really looking at volatility cycles. And frankly, both of them coincide with each other. So they're actually telling you the same thing about the market, except one is giving you direction in terms of buy and sell signal, and the other is simply expanding and contracting. बट दोनों आपको एक ही चीज बता रहे हैं बाजार के बारे में, या तो बाजार ट्रेंड कर रहा है या रुक रहा है, और जब भी रुकता है तो वापस जीरो तक आ जाता है. सो सिंपल थॉट्स दैट गेट अप्लाइड ओवर हियर. सो व्हेन वी लुक एट दिस इंडिकेटर, it's essentially something which is like a cycle. Okay, and the cycle is moving up and down below the up and down below. This is the classical way. Okay, in actuality you find a variation. You find, okay, this goes here, it goes like this, and then it goes like this. So various variations to this. And the second thing we do on this indicator is we plot an average of the indicator itself. Now this is true on all indicators. अगर आप MACD भी यूज करते हो, कोई भी यूज करते हो, the next thing you do is ये जो अंडरलाइंग इंडिकेटर है, इस इंडिकेटर का 9-day एवरेज लेते हैं. अब एवरेज आपने सीख लिया कैसे कैलकुलेट होता है, 9-day एवरेज, एंड वी यूज एन EM, एक्सपोनेंशियल एवरेज. तो इनके 9 दिनों बाद इधर 9th डे आता है, इधर हम इंडिकेटर प्लॉट करते हैं. फिर ये यहाँ से हर 9 दिन तक हम हर 9 दिन पीछे का इंडिकेटर प्लॉट करते हैं, तो ये कुछ ऐसा दिखने लगता है. ओके, सो ये 9-day एवरेज है इंडिकेटर का ही. RMI जो हमने कैलकुलेशन किया रेड लाइन, उसी का 9-day एवरेज लिया ग्रीन लाइन. इसका फायदा ये है कि जहां पे भी ये ग्रीन लाइन और रेड लाइन क्रॉस करते हैं, यहाँ पे हमें मिलता है बाय सिग्नल, और जहां पे भी ये रेड लाइन और ग्रीन लाइन नीचे की तरफ क्रॉस करते हैं, जहां रेड ग्रीन के नीचे जा रहा है, इसे हम लोग कहते हैं सेल सिग्नल. तो मल्टीपल बाय और सेल सिग्नल्स इसमें आते हैं. एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज ये बाय सिग्नल के बाद इसको हम पूरा एक साइकिल मानते हैं जब तक कि ये यहाँ आ जाता है. एंड एज वी लर्नड अर्लियर, प्राइसेस टेंड टू ट्रेंड अबव द 20-day एवरेज, right? So that is a very important input when you get in real time, in real life. See, this is a simplistic answer कि ये buy है, ये sell है. This is a simple chart. Okay, but in real time what you get a slight variation to this, which is that the actual movements, and let us take it black. Okay, the actual movement is somewhat like this. Okay, so some variation tends to occur. So when we are doing this variation, what might happen is you will get a sell signal over here. So people say, okay, does this mean sell? Okay, this is an indicator sell signal. See, we don't really recommend buy and sell. Okay, the platform just shows you what the indicator is doing in terms of crossover, as taught in any classical textbook. But execution really requires your interpretation. It requires a human mind and human brain. You can try coding it, but even coding it, I have seen that the results are not that good. Okay, so everything I'm telling you, some of you guys will say, let me go and create an algo on it. Do that, you might not get the similar results, because some human aspect just overrides all of this. When you combine 4 or 5 things together, the human mind reads it better than a system. That is what we found historically so far. Let's see whether we can even better that. But as of now, what I would say is, this sell signal doesn't necessarily mean sell, unless on the chart, as we have seen on the price chart, okay, we can actually so I'm just pulling this down a bit, okay, so that I can actually draw a price below it. So if I'm actually looking at price, okay, prices are rising. It's possible that prices turn down like this, which means that if I actually plot a 20-day average on top of this, it may only break over here, or in some cases it may only break over here. Okay, so what happens with the RMI indicator is, it may whipsaw, it may give you buy, it may give you sell, it may give you a buy again over here, it may give you sell again over here. But the time after this buy, this is my entry, right? मैंने buy कर लिया, इसके बाद मुझे एग्जिट किधर करना है? मुझे एग्जिट तब करना है when price and momentum both are confirming each other. Okay, this is classic Martin Pring. If you have never read a Martin Pring book, it's a must if you want to understand momentum indicators, divergences, and all those simple things in much more detail. But basically, the main concept, one of the main concepts, is price confirmation with indicator. You just can't say indicator ne sell diya. It has to confirm with price. So prices should also break either a trend line or a moving average, according to theory. In this case, I'm saying I'm using a moving average in the Bollinger Band, which is my 20. So I'm saying, okay, if the 20 breaks and I have a sell signal, that is the combination of my exit. Till that point of time, it is simply making noise, okay, giving you false sell signal, false buy signal. Everything is false. The trend is still intact, and so I do not exit till the trend is broken. That is the point of using this combination of tools. Okay, when you're using a combination of RMI along with the trade setup, you're essentially looking for confirmation between price and momentum. When price and momentum confirm, that is your exit. You can apply the same logic on the buy side also, right? Especially if you're short. Say, for example, you went short over here. Where is your exit? When price and momentum confirm a trend reversal from down to up. So, same thing in example terms. If I simply go to strike, okay, sorry. So in example terms, if we take a slightly noisier period, okay, which is like this. So isn't this one cycle? The answer is yes, it is. So for example, if you actually wanted to trade bullish and you got this buy signal over here, okay, and prices are already here above the 20-day average, so you might as well buy. And then you buy, and then you say, okay, now let me hold on. You hold on, it comes back to the 20-day average. Here's a sell signal. Should I sell? It didn't break the average, so I don't sell. Okay. Should I sell? Should I sell? I don't sell. I don't sell till it actually breaks here. And that is where you actually cross this entire period and reach this point. So the sell confirmation is only somewhere way back here. Now, like I said, medium-term investors may say, "Arey, already either kya downside hai, kuch hai hi nahi." But for the trader, he's just looking at entry, exit, then he's looking for next entry. Okay. So this combination of RMI plus, going above an average, or if you like using trend lines, you may even do the same thing by using a trend line somewhere. Carry a trend line break ho raha hai, then only I will exit. Okay. So, but there must be some price momentum confirmation based on a trend line or an average, whatever tool you like to use. And that only gives you the signal of exit. And in fact, the same can be used on an entry side also. कि एंट्री में भी मुझे दोनों का कंफर्मेशन मिल रहा है क्या, और दोनों का मिल रहा है तो ठीक है, एक ही का मिल रहा है तो फिर रुक भी सकता हूँ या थोड़ा ही बाय करूँ. Maybe I should only buy 20% because I'm not getting all signals confirming. Okay, so that can be an approach. But then, in a trending market, what happens is, usually if you're taking support at the bottom end, it is going to continue higher. That is why we chose this stock, right? One which is already got trending characteristics. and if it already has trending characteristics, I'm working with the presumption that it will hold the lower end, and therefore I'm willing to take more risk at the bottom end of the range because I'm presuming that it is not going to break. Okay, and so I'll give more importance to buy signals over sell signals because it's trending upwards. But on the sell side, I will be careful. I will not do an early exit because early exit किया तो पूरा मेहनत पानी में गया. वो आपको कराएगा ही. It will force you to do an early exit. Just like you are seeing over here, it goes above the average, gives a buy signal, and then it breaks it once and then shoots up. यहाँ पे आपको बिकवाएगा ही वो. It will force you to get out. Okay, and that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. So when you have very tight bands, say for example in this case only, which I was just showing you, the 20 DMA is here and 40 DMA is here. Both are very close to each other. It breaks the 20 on one day. Probably it makes sense in such times to, and since it's just taken support here, to really wait for the second average to hold as support. Because it's very close, just next door, and it may be giving you a false signal. Okay, so very helpful to really confirm with both as to what is happening, not happening. Is it a time to panic or not to panic? See, even here it came back to the 20 average, took support, didn't even close below the 20, went up again. But here there is a sell signal. Would you panic and get out? Okay, it tests your patience. If you're real time watching this, intraday गिर रहा है, 22 उड़ रहा है, फिर 3 बजे उसके ऊपर है, you will get shit scared कि कल क्या होगा. But it requires great discipline and patience to know, one, that the larger trend is up, and that most likely, given it's a trending stock, it will not. If it is holding that level, I must wait. I must not lose my patience. That is critical in terms of execution, and that's why execution is everything. Right? It's got a lot to do with human emotions. मैं आपको सब कुछ तौर तरीका इसका मैं सिखा तो जरूर सकता हूँ, बट आपकी जो मानसिक स्थिति है उसको आप कैसे संभालोगे इस सिचुएशन में और इससे कैसे उभरोगे, दैट इज गोइंग टू रियली मेक अ डिफरेंस इन हाउ योर एंड रिजल्ट्स आर. नॉट द सिस्टम, but your mental capability of managing the system, that yes, this is what the system is saying, this is what I will do. And means closing means 3:30 बजे अगर डेली चार्ट है, ये वीकली चार्ट है, मतलब फ्राइडे 3:30, मतलब सोचिए कि ये इंट्रा वीक के लेवल तोड़ रहा है और आपको सोचना है कि भाई इंट्रा लेवल तोड़ रहा है और डेली पे उस समय पे कैसा दिख रहा है वो तो अलग ही होगा, क्योंकि और भी डराएगा वो आपको डेली चार्ट पे कि अरे यार डेली पे तो ये भी टूट गया वो भी टूट गया, बट वीकली पे तो कुछ नहीं टूटा. तो कैन यू हैंग ऑन टू द वीकली टाइम फ्रेम चार्ट? So if I just go to a daily chart just to show you that same period here, see this dip and fall. It broke everything. It broke the 20 DMA, 40 DMA, सेल में चला गया. आप तो सोचो कि काट लो, बट सिर्फ वापस यहाँ पे ले पाओगे, because then next day it just gapped up and ran away after this sideways move. Okay, the weekly chart said hold, the daily chart said sell, and then buy. It has a buy signal here early, but it has not crossed the averages. So this is where then combining two time frames, which time frame are you going to look at? So if your time frame of trade is weekly, you cannot overlook what is happening on weekly. The setup is on weekly, trade setup. Daily में तो टूट रहा है, तो weekly को ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस दोगे ओवरऑल आप, डेली से ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस दोगे. So now you have a fair idea. See, this is the why this setup has been created. We are using a combination of just 3-4 indicators here, 20-day, 40-day, Bollinger bands and RMI. और इसके इस्तेमाल से हम लोग जज कर रहे हैं कि जो ट्रेंडिंग स्टॉक है वो कहाँ पे सपोर्ट लेगा, कहाँ पे सिग्नल देगा और उसको ट्रेड करेंगे. और इस तरह के स्टॉक्स मुझे ढूंढने. अब मैं ढूंढूंगा कैसे? अच्छा, बिफोर गोइंग टू दैट, शोइंग यू ऑन द वॉच लिस्ट कि हाउ डू यू रियली सर्च आउट फॉर दिस, एंड देन वी कैन टेक Q&A ऑल्सो. जस्ट लुक ऑन द लेफ्ट हैंड साइड फॉर पीपल हु आर कंफर्टेबल, जिन लोग को नंबरों से ज्यादा आसानी में समझ में आता है, चार्ट पढ़ने में मुश्किल आती है, तो नंबरों के हिसाब से भी आप सपोर्ट, रेजिस्टेंस, बाय सेल सिग्नल लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे देख सकते हैं. हमने सब लेवल्स दे दिया, अपर बैंड, लोअर बैंड. तो आप सोचिए कि लोअर बैंड जब टाइट हो जाता है और जब सेल सिग्नल है, वो लोअर बैंड सपोर्ट के तौर पे काम कर सकता है. सो बेसिकली दीज बैंड्स आर सपोर्ट रेजिस्टेंस लेवल्स फॉर यू. ओके, एंड सो आर द एवरेजेस, 20-day, 40-day, दे आर आल्सो सपोर्ट रेजिस्टेंस लेवल्स. एक बार आपको आदत हो जाएगी, जो मैंने आज बताया है उसी तरीके से आप इनको एज अ 20 सपोर्ट पकड़ेंगे कि हाँ 20 सपोर्ट है, इसके भाव इसके ऊपर है और प्राइस इंडिकेटर जो है बाय सिग्नल दे रहा है, तो दैट मीन्स द ट्रेंड इज पॉजिटिव. हमने इसमें एक और चीज ऐड कर दी है, दिस इज नोन एज अ डाउ ट्रेंड. ओके, डाउ ट्रेंड का हमारा स्कैनर भी है सिस्टम में. अब डाउ ट्रेंड क्या होता है, हमने इसको इधर क्यों ऐड किया? क्योंकि अपार्ट फ्रॉम द बाय सेल सिग्नल ऑफ RMI, ओके, वी वांटेड टू नो दैट एज पर क्लासिक डाउ थियरी क्या ये ट्रेंड ऊपर का है कि नीचे का है। तो ये क्लासिक डाउ थियरी क्या होता है? ओके, बहुत ही सिंपल है, जानते सब हैं, सबने सुना भी होगा, बट जस्ट टू विजुअलाइज इट, what is an uptrend? Say if something is going down like this, an uptrend is defined as a period where prices move up, but when they fall, they don't make a new low, and then after that, they actually surpass the previous high. So, the moment they surpass this previous high, we say that the prices are making higher high, higher low. सही है ना? हायर हाई बना रहे हैं क्योंकि ये एक पहले हाई बना, फिर ये हायर लो बना, और इसके बाद एक और हायर हाई बना. तो देयर आर टू थिंग्स हैपनिंग हियर. ओके, फ्रॉम हियर टू हियर हायर हायर हाई, एंड फ्रॉम हियर टू हियर हायर लो. तो जब हायर हाई हायर लो बन जाता है, डाउ थियरी स्टेट्स दैट द ट्रेंड इज अप. ओके, the trend can also reverse in a different way. Okay, if instead of simply surpassing this, it can also be something like this and then goes past this previous high. क्योंकि इससे क्या होता है कि प्रीवियस जो लोअर हाई लोअर लो का ट्रेंड था, जो डाउन ट्रेंड इंटैक्ट था, वो डाउन ट्रेंड टूट जाता है. क्यों? क्योंकि ये जो प्रीवियस लो है, इसके नेक्स्ट लो इसके नीचे नहीं आया, उल्टा इसके ऊपर आ गया. सो दैट इज ऑल्सो अ साइन दैट द प्रीवियस ट्रेंड इज ब्रेकिंग. तो दो तरीके से ट्रेंड रिवर्सल हो सकता है. ओके, आइदर इट कैन सरपास द प्रीवियस हाई, और it can make a higher high higher low pattern here itself. So these two levels become critical, this high and this high. These last two swings, one of the previous fall and one of the recent rise, whenever they are surpassed, whichever surpasses first tells us that the trend has changed from down to up. The same logic can apply upside down, कि जब अगर ऊपर ही जा रहा है, जहां पे ये ऐसे करेगा, either breaking first this level and second breaking this level, both are signals of the trend changing from up to down. तो इस चीज को हमने मैथमेटिकली कंप्यूट करके यहाँ दिखा दिया है कि ट्रेंड जो है वो ऊपर का है कि नीचे का है. सो इट शोज विद अ ग्रीन एरो अप एंड डाउन एरो एज रेड शोइंग यू द डाउ ट्रेंड. सो इन एडिशन टू द बाय सेल सिग्नल, यू आल्सो कम टू नो कि डाउ ट्रेंड के हिसाब से भी ट्रेंड ऊपर का है कि नहीं. एंड देन उसके बाद अब देखो कि मूविंग एवरेज के ऊपर है कि नहीं, 20 के ऊपर गया कि नहीं, अगर बाय सिग्नल आ रहा है. सो यू कैन गो बैक एंड चेक, सी यहाँ न्यू बाय सिग्नल आया, क्लोजिंग प्राइस क्या है 5392. इज इट अबव द 20 डे? नो. Okay, Dow trend is positive, so you have two positives but not yet this. So you can actually say, okay, I want to buy 100 shares, but let me only buy 25 right now because I'm not getting full confirmation. When it crosses the average, which happens a little later, okay, so when prices have gone above this average, that is when then I say, okay, now I can get into it. Okay, of course here prices are actually 553 is above 45, but just as an example, I said if it is not, then you can do that. If it is, then there's no problem. यहाँ पे तो ऊपर है ही, 5300 is more than 4500, and you have a buy signal and the Dow trend is positive. Of course, you should have bought on the 19th of February. Okay, on the weekly chart, which is where on this 19th of February here. This is the signal. So this signal, right, you are above the average, everything was right. This was a buy, basically, and then it has gone much above that. So using this simple combination on the left hand side also, if you don't want to look at the chart, data point देख के कि हाँ ये कंफर्म हो रहा है, ये कंफर्म हो रहा है, ये कंफर्म हो रहा है, हाँ फिर ठीक है, वहां पे मैं फिर रिस्क ले सकता हूँ. Okay, so this I think yeah, one last thing I was going to tell you, right? So I've already explained to you the setup, the indicators, how they work. The last thing for you to know is that you can also run this on your own setup. So how can you do that? Is when you come to the home page, there's something known as a watch list. वॉच लिस्ट में आप या तो अपना खुद का वॉच लिस्ट क्रिएट कर सकते हो, क्रिएट वॉच लिस्ट क्लिक करके, और उसमें फिर आप ऐड दबा के अपने खुद के स्टॉक्स ऐड कर सकते हो. ओके, यू कैन क्रिएट अ लिस्ट ऑफ स्टॉक्स. Now, once you've created the list, you might say, okay, I want to see whether it's trending based on the Rohit setup. Now, यहाँ पे Rohit setup का option नहीं है, but you can actually quickly, try and create that by adding the RMI indicator, adding the Bollinger band. Okay, once you add a couple of these tools, you can actually look for stocks that are following this pattern. And if you want, you can add the 40 EMA also, moving average exponential. Only thing is you'll have to set this up to a 40. Okay, so if you can set it to a 40, here you are, and now you're looking at the same setup, and you can click on any of the stocks, the setup will remain, and you can search अच्छा कौन सा स्टॉक ऐसा कर रहा है जो हमने अभी अभी एबीबी में देखा, कौन सा ऐसा स्टॉक कर रहा है और फिर करता जाएगा। ऐसा हमें सोचना पड़ेगा कि हाँ, आज अगर कर रहा है, जैसे कि यहाँ पे टेक स्टॉक्स कर रहे थे, इन्फोसिस यहाँ पे सपोर्ट लिया, तो दोबारा भी लेगा, तो वी प्रिज्यूम दैट इट विल कीप डूइंग दैट. So we go on a outlook for stocks that are following that pattern by scanning through the system and choosing the time frame that you want. You want to do it on the daily time frame, you want to do it on the weekly time frame, you can choose weekly. You might find some stocks like here Maruti is holding the bottom end of the range on the weekly. Here again it is held over here. So I presume that if it is holding, this is a good point, that if you have a buy signal, prices are at the 20 DMA, then that may be, if it is to work again, then that is a good entry point. So that's where you know that, yeah, your risk is very low if you're close to the 20-day average and you have a buy signal. Okay. So that's how you sort of interpret the reading on this. And so you scan through and look for setups which are following this perfectly, either on the daily or weekly chart. So you can do that with your watch list as well. That is what I wanted to show you. So yeah, with that, we are ready to actually go into taking questions, and you can shoot whatever question you want.
Sure, sir. I'll go through the questions. So someone has requested they went through a stock which is a sell on a monthly, new buy on a weekly, buy on daily. So this chart is EIH Hotel. So if you can take that chart and as an example.
You see, guys, if you're looking at these examples, first of all, I will try my best that we are not making a recommendation on anything. So do understand the purpose should be to learn the setup and get an idea. Okay. Now see on the daily chart, after multiple supports, resistances, okay, we are seeing it cross the average and give a bullish signal. Okay. Now you mentioned monthly, it may be sell possible because on the monthly chart, two things can happen. One is either that it has completed the cycle, gone back to zero, so it's going to start something new, and therefore it is in sell mode. The second is that it is still trending, the trend has not reversed. So in this particular case, that is what it looks like. You can see the example from the past also over here. Okay, here also, this is way back in the 2003 period. It went above the 20 and then stayed above this throughout the bull market, only breaking down over here. So every time it came back and didn't break it, it was a good support for the upward trend to continue. Now that is a judgment call. So if it is back at the 20, it's a very good place. If it is still far away, we sometimes don't know whether it will come back to that level before taking support or will it break it. So right now when I look at this, I see here multiple one support happened. Now it's gone pretty far. Now it's not yet back at this level. So will it stop here and go up or not? Slight question mark. Okay. But it hasn't broken this average and therefore it has not yet reversed the larger trend. So then on a weekly, monthly basis, I'll have to take a call. Okay, I go to the weekly chart. I see, okay, weekly chart, is it trending? Is it holding this support? Okay, and it is at this support again, which is the bottom end, though it has slightly gone below this, but it is giving a signal here. So see, when you get something like this, you haven't broken a monthly signal, maybe sell, but you haven't broken the 20-month. Therefore, not breaking the 20-month and then getting bullish signals on lower time frames can still be positive because the monthly trend has not yet broken down. Okay, and so yeah, that is how I would interpret it.
Okay. Nikhil, yes, we are still working on alerts. So all the crossover and everything will be covered in the alerts. So there is a question from Bala Subramaniam. Buy is based on only on Rohit momentum signal or price should also be above 20 DMA?
Price.
Yeah.
Price is price. What has that got to do with? I didn't get the question only.
The question is it looking only at the RMI signal or the price also crossing above us like an 20 DMA?
Of course, a combination of both is better. Okay. But if you find a stock that is trending, which means that it is not broken the lower end of the range, then even on one indicator, see what I can do is I can position size. I can give weightages to each thing. I can say 20% on this, 20% on the next thing, 20% on the next thing. So that way I can actually spread out my risk. Okay, if I'm not only going to use one indicator, I can spread risk by using a combination of tools and then giving weightages and taking position accordingly.
Oh, so, which time frames to use for a swing trade for like 3 to 15 day trade?
Yeah, so if you're looking 3 to 15 days, I think the daily chart is the critical one, because the daily chart, each cycle, each RMI cycle on the daily chart lasts for that 10 15 days. So
Hmm.
that should be the most important time frame. If you want to tighten that execution, you can either use a daily hourly combination, or you can use a weekly daily combination. So in weekly daily, basically your weekly trend would determine the direction, and your daily chart will give you that 10 days, 15 days holding period, where every buy and sell signal will go for that long.
Okay. So yes, Raghunath, the 40 MA will be already added on the chart when you go to the Rohit setup screen in any stock. Ankush, fundamental scanners are almost ready. We'll be adding them soon. Yes, we are also working on mobile apps. As of now, the desktop version is available. So you can send in more questions, guys. We are taking questions. Yes, you will get a recording. The same link on YouTube will convert into a video. Daily as trend and hourly as entry exit. Yes, as sir explained, you can use two time frames. How to get good signal from 5,000 stocks? How to answer this one, sir?
Yeah. So it requires another session of scanning. I'm not going into scanners right now, but we have scanners on the tool. In fact, you can go to the technical scanners and actually look for stocks that are trending, that are holding above a certain level over a period of time, and that can speed up your process of finding stocks.
Mm.
I can give a quick example. Okay, it's not so difficult. It's very easy. You go to scanners, you go to technical scan. Say you want a simple moving average. Okay, so I say I can choose whether I want it above or below. I can say I want it above. I can say, let's say, above 50 to be really outright, you know. And then what is this Aadhaar HFC? Weird. And then, I mean, I even have a market cap option. If you want lower cap, higher cap stocks, I can choose a basket. Okay, whether I want all baskets or whether I want only some, or I want all indices, all stocks that are across indices. And you want indices also, or you don't want indices. Okay. And then you decide for what time period. So you want stocks that are holding this, say, over, it's very long. Let's just say 2 months. Where are we? We are in October, so say September, August. Let me just say from 1st of August. So what I've ended up here is the list of maybe 50, 100 stocks that for some time are above this, maybe for 2 months, 3 months. You can increase or decrease the time horizon if you want. If you feel, this is too short, the more you increase the time horizon, the fewer stocks that are going to be in the list. Now, in addition to this, then I would do this. Say I've marked favorite as my tools, RMI, Bollinger Band. So now automatically I have the whole trade set up now on the right hand side, and I can actually scan through these stocks by now all of these will be sort of appear trending because I've just scanned it that way. So what is the only thing I have to do here? I have to look for that where the risk reward is right, where the signals are just coming, not one which is far away gone up. Like something has gone up a lot, then I'm careful. Like here now, see in this case, it has gone up a lot over here. Okay. But here it held the 20 DMA, here it held the 20 DMA. Now it's a question mark. Will it hold the 20 DMA? See, stock market is not the perfect place. It's not place where probability is 100%. But we can say, okay, with some probability, if this has held, maybe it will hold again. Okay. But if it has held twice, what are the chances that third time it will break? So this question will always come in your mind. It always comes down to this. What is your stop loss? Okay. So are you going to place a stop here, and can you? And if you think the stop is wide, then how much risk you want to take? And based on your risk, you will take that much position only. That is the way something like this will always work. Otherwise, you can never take a trade. So by doing that backhand calculation, then you can set up that, okay, this makes sense. You can also look for the type of candle. Say, for example, after this support, the type of candle here is green. This is also green. This one is red. So if you get a green candle, you're probably more happier than a red candle. And that can also be a decision making point. Should you buy the average or not? And then or else you can continue to scan and find stocks that are maybe at the bottom end of the range, which are at the lower band. Like we are going to be getting into tech earnings now. So here the stock is at the lower band. Will the lower band hold as support or not? The RMI has crossed over and we have closed above the 20 DMA, but there was selling at higher levels. Now that selling was because Friday was a really bad day on the market. But yeah, so this is the risk reward now in front of you. And you have to take a decision. So this is how you can scan. See, scanning simplifies your process. If you learn how to scan, you will have more complex scanners also come in later for people who want to do technical, fundamental, combined scanning and so on. But simple technical scanners have already been added over here, where you can actually find out stocks on various different tools, including Bollinger Bands or RSI, whatever you need.
So there is a question from Tushar. What if 20 MA is lower than the 40 MA and price is holding 20 MA on the monthly time frame? If RMI is giving buy signal for lower time frame, then how should we look at this scenario?
So the higher time frame always takes precedence. Okay, if the higher time frame setup is bullish, based on how I've explained the bullish setup to be, then on the lower time frame you don't want to trade on the sell side because that's a waste of time. वो आपको short trap कर देगा. तो आपको शॉर्ट में ट्रैप नहीं होना है. अगर लॉन्गर टर्म ट्रेड सेटअप तेजी बता रही है तो शॉर्टर टर्म ट्रेड सेटअप में तेजी ढूंढना है आपको कि जब वो तेजी का सेटअप आएगा तब उसमें आपको ट्रांजैक्शन लेना है. जब तेजी का सेटअप शॉर्ट टर्म में नहीं है और लॉन्ग टर्म में तेजी का सेटअप है तो आंसर इज कुछ मत करो, सो जाओ.
Ideal time frame for RMI indicator for FNO stocks in intraday or positional trading? I think this is already answered.
या बट जस्ट टू पुट इट कि सी आइडियल टाइम फ्रेम मतलब वो सोच रहा है आरएमआई में ना यू डोंट हैव टू चेंज द इंडिकेटर सेटिंग. हमने उसको स्टैंडर्ड रखा है और ऑप्शन नहीं दिया है कि आप उसको अदला बदली करें. सो ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज चूज द टाइम फ्रेम ऑफ द चार्ट. ओके, सो आइदर इफ इट्स पोजिशनल यू डू डेली वीकली. इफ इट इज वेरी शॉर्ट टर्म 4-5 दिन का सौदा कर रहे हैं आप तो डेली और आर्ली का कॉम्बिनेशन कर सकते हैं. और थोड़ा और लंबा इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं, आपको 6 महीने रखना है, 1 साल रखना है, तो मंथली और वीकली के कॉम्बिनेशन में कर सकते हैं.
Can lower time frames like 5 or 15 minutes also be used with RMI?
Absolutely. If you're a day trader, you can perfect yourself on those lower time frames. मैं जानता हूँ लोगों को जो 5 और 15 मिनट पे काम ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं और खुशी से कर रहे हैं, तो आपको सिर्फ एडजस्ट करना है. मैं पर्सनली नहीं करता हूँ क्योंकि मेरा डे ट्रेडिंग का माइंडसेट नहीं है. अगर आपका माइंडसेट है, यू कैन अप्लाई इट टू लोअर टाइम फ्रेम्स एज वेल.
Does RMI work on indices? Yes, it
Of
works
course,
for
on
all
everything.
charts.
एवरीथिंग, इंडाइसेस, फॉरेक्स, करेंसी, कमोडिटी, हर चीज पे हम लोग ये सेटअप इस्तेमाल कर रहे हो.
I guess that's pretty much it with the questions.
Great.
So I thank everyone for joining us on a Sunday morning for this valuable insights on RMI. So the recordings will be available on YouTube. So you can go. The ones who have missed the live session can go through recordings. So thanks
Yeah,
a
and if
lot.
you're new to Strike, then just sign in, start your trial session for Strike. It will give you a 7-day trial. We are, the rates for subscription. There are, mild discounts over there because this is, what we call as preferential pricing, as a launch pricing. And so you're getting very good rates even to subscribe for 6 months, 1 year, and so on. So consider it, start with that trial and start applying whatever we've told you. I think you'll immediately get hooked. My Strike screen is always open every day along with my trading platform. So that is how it should be. This should be the terminal you will need for all information on any stock. जो भी आपको चाहिए स्टॉक के बारे में वो आपको इधर मिल जाना चाहिए. नहीं मिल रहा है तो आप हमें बताइए, मिल जाएगा. So that is how that is the promise that Strike brings to the table. So go ahead and start off with your 7-day trial if you're a first time user of this platform.
So once again, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.